Welcome, Cougars, to the BYU Foods Lab. We're going to go through a few things. For the first few labs, you're going to familiarize yourself with the kitchens. So the first thing that you need to look for is on the back of your kitchen cupboard, you will find a list that tells everything that you need to do when you clean up. Make sure that you read this at the beginning of lab so that you know what you need to do throughout the lab. We're going to talk about some equipment. This equipment is all found in the kitchen cupboard right above your sink. So right above your sink, that belongs to your kitchen. This is called a box grater. And a box grater has different sides. This is the blade, this is a small grater, this is a zester, and this is a large grater. I would use the blade on this side for just a small job. If I'm going to do something like just a portion of an onion, I might use that, and I wouldn't get out any other piece of equipment. This box grater has some features that are kind of nice. This has a rubber gasket on the bottom that makes it nice when you go to work with it. It holds it steady and in place. It also has a storage container that you can put underneath the box grater and then grate whatever you want to right into there and then close it and use that for storage. This is not my favorite feature on a box grater. I prefer a zester, and this is a zester well worth your investment. Put it on the list of gifts that people can give you because it's amazing. This works well for lemon zest, orange zest, grating nutmeg, grating ginger. It's very fine and it does a really, really good job. When you work with the grater, if you want it to stay sharp, don't put it in your dishwasher. Just use it and wash it immediately. Inside the food processor, you have some choices as far as what goes in there. The discs that come with a food processor, usually there's a blade, and usually there's some kind of a grater, and then depending on how much you want to spend, there are all kinds of other discs. There's also a knife blade that goes into the food processor. It's super sharp, so make sure that when you use this, you put it in the sharps basket before washing. To put the lid on the food processor, you also need to make sure that everything lines up. It will not turn on unless everything is safely locked into place, and then it will turn on for operation. You'll also find a mini food chopper in your kitchen. It is designed to just do limited things. It has a blade on the inside that works really well for chopping a bunch of nuts, or if you wanted to do 5 to 10 cloves of garlic, it would work well for that. We have a mini hand chopper in the kitchens as well. When you shop for one of these, they are not all created equal. You want to look for one that when you push down on the top, the blades rotate. Many of the ones out there just go straight down in the same place, and that doesn't work very well for chopping. So this one, each time I push down, the blades rotate and it chops in a different place. It also has a little rubber gasket here that you can put about a half a cup of something in there and then just use it and chop here, or you can put it on your cutting board and move it around to do chopping. What you also want to look for with a hand chopper is that it comes apart easily so that you'll be able to clean all up inside of here. Many of the ones out there don't do this, and you end up with mold and bits of food up in there that's rotting. When you go to put it together at the end, make sure that you put all the pieces back together and then put it back in the cupboard, but don't put the rubber gasket back on the end because it doesn't allow for that last bit of moisture to evaporate and we get mold inside. But do store it like this so that the two parts are together. In your kitchens, you also have a jelly roll pan and a cookie sheet or baking sheet, it's sometimes called. The jelly roll pan has a 1-inch side all the way around the outside edge, works great for cookies and for cakes. The cookie sheet or baking sheet works great for cookies, but obviously not for cakes. You also will have in your kitchen some muffin tins. This is a mini muffin tin, and this won't be found in your kitchen, but I wanted to explain to you when you do use the non-stick cooking spray, make sure that you put it inside of the sink to spray so that overspray doesn't get all over your kitchen. And then after you've sprayed it with the non-stick cooking spray, take a paper towel and wipe the top off, and that will keep the top from browning and the muffin tin will stay shiny longer. You want to shop for shiny muffin tins and shiny cookie sheets and jelly roll pans, because dark ones will attract the heat and cause overly browned bottoms and overly browned sides. Keep them nice and clean in your kitchens, and then you'll maintain that shininess that works well for making cookies and muffins. When you are working with bakeware, parchment paper works super well for making a non-stick surface. Parchment paper is actually paper infused with Teflon. It's not the same as wax paper. In your kitchens, you also have a muffin scoop or ice cream scoop and a cookie scoop. This works really well for making sure that the muffins are all the same size. This works well for making sure that the cookies are all the same size. With the cookies, if you scoop it in and press down, especially on the ginger snaps, they'll all be the exact same size. In your kitchens, you also have a sieve and a colander. You need to know the difference. This is a sieve. It has a wire mesh. Works great for straining off things that you need to have all of the liquid strained off. This is a colander, and the colander works for things like noodles or big chunks of food that you need to strain things off. In our kitchens, you cannot put any things down the sink. So if you have some soup, for example, that you need to throw away, you could strain it in the colander, let the juice go down the sink, and then pour the chunks into the garbage can. When you come into lab each week, what you need to do is sit down and fill out your lab evaluation form. The lab evaluation form needs to be filled out all the way on the top with your group. You'll sit down, fill that out at the top, make sure that you note the unit duty, and your unit duty each week is posted on the bulletin board that is over by the coat racks. Make sure that all of this is filled out. You'll fill out the bottom part when you finish cooking. Also, make sure that you read your recipe out loud together before you begin cooking. This makes it so that you don't have any errors in your recipes. And you will also make sure that you do your time management plan. The time management plan ensures that you'll finish on time. We have a 2-hour cook time, and at the end of that 2 hours, you need to have cleaned, dried, and put away all of the equipment and tools that you've used. You also need to have your product turn out perfectly, and it needs to be ready to serve. Your table will be set with all of the dishes, and your sink will have brand new clean water in it that you're going to use for cleaning the dishes that are on your table that you eat from. Across the top here, you'll have the name of each person in your kitchen. The objective here is not to rewrite the recipe. The objective is to have a time management plan where steps are minimized and you work as a team. For example, if you're doing soup, salad, and muffins, and each of those recipes has chopped onions in them, then what you'll want to do is have one person chop the onions for all, and that would be on your time management plan. When you go to the cart to get the refrigerated items, you send one person to get all of the ingredients. You might even want to write those ingredients somewhere on this paper so that that person knows exactly what they're going to get off of the refrigerator cart. In your lab, you also need to make sure that you set it up correctly for the next group. When you're all through cooking, you're going to have you'll have used a dishcloth and 3 dish towels. When it's time to check out, you'll get a TA. You'll open all the doors and drawers and cupboards. You'll have them come and check your kitchen out. You will hold on to the dirty towels and dishcloth that you have until they've checked you out. That's so that if there's anything that they think you need to go ahead and clean a little bit more, you can use the towels that you already have to do that job. And then after they've checked you out, that's when you go over to the cupboard that's by the coat racks, and you'll get clean dishcloths and clean dish towels. 3 towels and 1 cloth for the next group. If you have any major spills in your kitchen, you will need to use a rag from the rag bucket. And the reason is that these have to be sanitized. These can be used on the floor. They can also be used whenever you use a bleach solution so that you don't discolor our towels. You also have a basket that is by the taps, and in this basket you're going to have your dishwashing soap, you're going to have a brush, you're going to have a sponge, and you're going to have the stopper. When you're through cleaning, all of this needs to be cleaned and dried. The best way to clean this or to dry this sponge is to put it in one of the towels and squeeze it out, make sure that all of the water is out before you put it in the dry basket. You're going to use a towel to dry this out. To clean and dry the brush after you've rinsed it really well and got all the food particles out, pound it really hard on the edge of your sink and make sure that everything gets out of it before you put it in here. The stopper needs to be dried and put in here. Make sure you dry underneath the basket and then place that at the top of your sink and faucets. When you come to lab, you need to have your whole kitchen group come over to the oven and figure out how it works. Our ovens have an oven that has a convection oven setting, and that means that there's a big fan in the back of one of these ovens. And the big fan will distribute the air so that the heat is distributed evenly, and that works when you have 2 cookie sheets and you put them in at once, or 2 muffin pans and you put them in at once. Other than that, you can just use the regular oven setting and just set it on that for regular cooking. So look in the oven, figure out which one is the convection oven setting. Another thing that you need to check is make sure that the oven racks are in the right place for the food item that you're cooking. If it's a big loaf of bread, I would need to lower this oven rack so that the center of the food product is in the center of the oven, and adjust those racks accordingly. If you have it on convection bake, it doesn't matter because that air is going to circulate. Now the settings for the oven are up here, and you need to select which one you need for the oven that you're using. If I am going to use the convection oven, in this particular oven, it's the upper oven. So first I would select upper oven, then I would select convection, and then I would set my temperature. And then I would hit start. There's a little fan feature that shows up, and that fan feature tells you that the oven is set on convection bake. If I don't want it on convection bake, I can use that same oven for just regular bake. I would turn it on the upper oven, and then I would set it on bake, and then the temperature, and that upper oven would work for that. If we're going to use broil, we would select the oven that we want to broil in. Either the upper oven or the lower oven has the broil feature, then broil, and then I can make it either go high or low depending on how I select it. If you have a piece of meat that's very thick, you would want it farther away from that upper heating element, and you would want it on the low broil. If it's something very small and you just want to brown it quickly, you could have it on high broil and you could put it close to that heating element. So that's how the broiler works. For regular baking, you can use either oven. When you come to lab, you need to look in the oven, and if there are any crumbs in the oven, you wipe them out before you begin to cook, because if there's anything in there that's spilled, it's going to be too hot at the end of lab for your group to wipe it out. The cooktop is a flat glass cooktop in most of the kitchens. If you spill anything on the cooktop, you want to scrape it off quickly. We have a flat spatula that works well for that. You can do that while it's still hot. And then when it begins to cool, you'll want to wipe it off as soon as you can. If there are any stains, then you can go to the dispensary and get a razor blade, and under your sink is a ceramic cooktop cleaning agent that you'd squirt on, rub it around, and then scrape anything that you've spilled on off of there. You need to make sure that you don't ever set anything on the cooktop. It remains hot. We had a student one time put a 9x13 glass pan, just set it on top of the cooktop. It was hot and it literally exploded. So we don't want that to happen. The microwave. Microwaves work by bursting microwaves into the microwave oven, and they do it at intervals. If you just turn it on, it shoots in those microwaves all the time. If you select 50% power, then that means that it doesn't lower the microwaves at all. It just shoots the microwaves in at 50% of the time. So it will turn them into the oven, and then it will be off for a while, then into the oven, and then off. And to set that, you would set your cook time first. Say we were doing 4 minutes. Then I would select the power level, and then if I had 50%, I would select the 5 and then start. And that would mean that it would cook for the selected time at 50% power. Most of the time, we just cook at full power. When you're doing the cherry jam tarts, you will need to make sure that you roll them super, super thin. They'll be rolled as thin as a stick of gum, extra, not orbit. And what you're going to do is get the plastic wrap onto a wet countertop. The wet countertop makes it so that the plastic wrap doesn't slip around. So you'll put out one sheet of plastic wrap, then you put the dough down, coat it in flour, roll it out, and then put the top sheet on and roll it. Right here, I've got this one all rolled out so that it's super thin for the bottoms of the tarts. After you have the bottoms all rolled out, you're going to roll out the top. To roll the dough out, you need to make sure that you position it on top of the flour and then coat both sides with the flour and then pat it with your hands so that it is very smooth on the outside edges. You'll also want to pound it using your fist so that you can get it really thin before you take the rolling pin to it. When I have it about 1/4 of an inch thick, if there's no flour on the top, I can just simply turn it over so there's a little bit of flour on the top now, and then I'll take the plastic wrap and cover the top and roll the tops of the tarts. I'll roll them just like I've rolled these over here. You're going to use the tart press, looks like this, and you'll just cut out all of the circles. An easy way to get these off of the countertop is just to use the plastic wrap as a tool. Put your hand underneath and gently fold it over so that you have a very thin tart bottom. When you get the bottoms rolled out, you're going to put them on the cookie sheet that's lined with parchment paper. You will take the cherry jam and you'll put a teaspoon of cherry jam in the center of the tart. You take the heart cutter and cut a little heart in the center, and then when you lift this up, there will be a heart that you will just hold aside, and you'll put this on top of the bottom, line it up like this. You can put the little one that you cut out to the side, and then using the tart press, this is what does the decorative edge when you push down on the center. And that will form your cherry jam tart. Then you'll sprinkle it with turbinado sugar and place it in the oven. With the pineapple muffins, you need to know that the method that is used is called the muffin method. And basically with that, we have a wet set of ingredients, which I have combined in the mixer here, and I've creamed them together using the paddle attachment. Then I have put all of the dry ingredients together, and then I have some more ingredients here that I have creamed together. So those are all terms that you'll need to know. So in this bowl, I have the wet ingredients, and I'm going to alternate mixing the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients and the sour cream. In this bowl, I have the pineapple in a sieve, and I have pressed out all of the liquid. By using a spoon, you can press out all of the liquid. That's important that you do that so that the recipe turns out right, and you will be saving the pineapple juice that you're going to put into the frosting at the end. So to combine this, we're going to just fold in a portion, a little bit of the flour, and I will use a rubber scraper to fold that in. I don't want to over stir it, so I cut through with the rubber scraper and turn. That's folding in, and then I'll put a little bit of the sour cream in, and I will fold that in. Then I will add a little bit of the flour mixture and fold that in. The secret with these muffins is to not over mix them. So fold it in, and then when you get about half of the flour in, then you're also going to start adding the crushed pineapple until you have it all combined but not over stirred. I'm going to start adding some of the pineapple now, and I'll put that in. Then I'll add more of the flour, more of the sour cream, and then the pineapple. When it's all mixed up, you're going to put it into the prepared muffin tins. I've prepared the muffin tins by putting the liners in, spraying it with nonstick cooking spray, and wiping off any excess cooking spray that may have got on the muffin tin to prevent that browning. And then I've put a little bit of the almonds in the bottom, and I will use the cookie scoop to portion the muffins into the muffin tins, and then I will put some almonds on top, and then these will be ready to bake. If you ever finish and have empty muffin tins, what you can do is just put a little bit of water in the bottom of the muffin tins and go ahead and bake it. The water prevents the muffin tin from warping, and so having that in there, you can go ahead and bake it with those empty if you put the water in. Another thing that you can do if you just have a small group of people that you're making this for, you can go ahead and prepare your muffin batter, but use foil muffin liners. Put the dough or the batter into the foil muffin liners and then just freeze those. You can pop them out of the freezer right into your muffin tin, and it'll take about a 5 to 10 minute longer bake time, but then you'll have fresh muffins. For the raspberry strudel muffins, it's a pretty easy recipe, and it's just using the muffin method where I have dry ingredients and wet ingredients. I combine the two using a rubber scraper. So all at once, I just put that in. Using a rubber scraper, I will combine it. And the trick is to make sure that you do not overmix it. It will still appear kind of lumpy. When you get the batter all mixed together, you're going to put about half of the muffin cup full with some batter. Then you're going to put 4 raspberries on each muffin, and then you will fill the rest of the muffin with another half scoop of the batter, and then you'll top those with the streusel topping. While the ginger snaps are in the oven cooking, you can get your chocolate ready so that you can dip the ginger snaps. An easy way to do that is put them in a freezer Ziploc bag and then pound the chocolate until it's in small pieces so that it'll be easy to melt. Use your rolling pin, take out all your aggression, and pound. When you have it in small pieces, you can go ahead and transfer that to a microwave-safe liquid measuring cup, and you're going to melt that in the microwave at 30-second intervals until it is melted and just warm to the touch, not hot. When you're melting the chocolate, if you'll get a fork and stir it vigorously between the 30-second intervals, that will help it melt easier because of the warm spots rather than giving it another 30 seconds, and that way you won't get it too hot. When you take the ginger snaps out of the oven, they should look like this. They will be a little more puffed up as you take them out, but when you take them out, they'll fall. What you're looking for is the cracks on the surface. To dip them with the chocolate after they've cooled enough to handle them and take them off the cookie sheet, you just lift it up, get the chocolate so that it's to the edge of the measuring cup, and then roll just the top of the cookie, and you're going to cover half of the surface with the chocolate. And that's what you'll do for dipping all of the ginger snaps. Just roll it, take it off, and then you'll take this whole tray to the dispensary to cool, and they're ready for serving. When you move the ginger snaps to the refrigerator, make sure and hold the parchment paper on top of the baking sheet. You'd be surprised at how many batches of cookies we lose because this slides right off. For the chocolate chip bean cookies, you've got the chocolate in a freezer Ziploc bag. You've melted it in the microwave at 30-second intervals. It's warm to the touch. You've massaged it so that there are no lumps left. And then you're going to cut off a tiny corner of the Ziploc bag and use that for a piping tube to put the decoration on the chocolate chip bean cookies.